And they have moved us to the desert. Our experience has been one where others sometimes have discussed Africans as objects in history. And apart from our own centered activities, carrying out the responsibilities of our ordinary lives, they've sort of pushed us out that way. This is the experience of the subjugated, the defined, the marginalized people of the world. It is particularly true in light of the postmodern penchant for the fluidity of identities and the uncertainty of our futures. My thought on this occasion tonight is to provoke a debate about the possibility of Africans commenting on the world from our own perspective, determining character, isolating events, and recording our impressions as a people of history. This is why I was challenged by the idea that ancient Kemet people might have had opinions, ideas, and comments about others that might teach us something about gaining and losing a sense of control over our own destiny. Now, I want to say this, and I want you to understand this and not misunderstand it. We have to be very wise. It is important for us to do several things. We just can't do one thing. We have to be multidimensional. We are multidimensional people anyway, but we have to be multidimensional. And as much as I appreciate, for example, the great discovery of the tomb of Karakamoon, that's only one aspect of what we have to do. I want to be clear about this. Look, that's important. But some of us will be archaeologists, others of us will not be. Now you can go for an experience and just want to go dig, you can do that. That's fine. There's no problem with that. But my question is, how do we advance our culture? And how do we advance our history? You know, look, if you know me, you know I don't have any problem with digging. And that's not the issue. Here's the issue. When I say to you, let's study the lives of the ancient Greeks, what do we study? We study texts. And why do we study texts? We study texts because if you study the text, you have something that is written literally that you can use for practical understanding for the future. It may be that you can do that with knowing whether the pyramids, for example, were aligned to Sirius. But that's not the same. That's important. Y'all, I know y'all quiet. I'm not, look, y'all see, because I don't want you to, but no, don't go out here. I'm not criticizing. I'm expanding. You understand what I'm saying? I'm expanding your thinking on this. It's important for us to dig. And some of y'all will dig. That's good. But most of us, I hope, will study the text. And in studying the text, we then can advance even farther. We can help the people who are digging understand what they're seeing. That's extreme. And it's extremely important. I know y'all understand that. I remember when I was a student, in college, I read a book by someone who was very famous. And I later had an interaction with him, which was quite interesting. In my new book, As I Run Toward Africa, I didn't include this incident, but as I try to think of what I will write for the second memoir, I will include it. It was an interaction with a man by the name of Frank Snowden. You may never have heard of this man. You've heard of him. Well, I read Blacks in Antiquity. And when I read his book, Blacks in Antiquity, I almost cried. I almost cried because it was a book about how whites in Rome and Greece saw Africans. In other words, it was not about blacks in antiquity. It was about how white people viewed blacks in antiquity. And it was what the Romans saw, how they looked at the blacks and how they had them on the various jars and vases and various portraits. And I had an interaction with him when I was giving a speech at a social studies conference, and it was an incredible exchange. I didn't know it was him, and I didn't know until after the exchange. But he was wrong, and because he was trying to defend the position that, well, blacks in antiquity, this is what we know about how blacks were seen in antiquity and so on. But what he was doing was a Eurocentric interpretation of how blacks were viewed. It was not blacks viewing themselves or blacks viewing whites. So I said this was neither the book I wanted nor needed to have as an Africologist. If anything, what was called for was a book about white people in antiquity, a much more rational approach to the racializing project that was started by Europeans. And he couldn't understand that.